This is the new 4UD Friction Pro Bucking. I've heard great things about them and I'd like to support the 4UD brand, so I decided to stock them here at Perfect Airsoft for you guys as well. This bucking includes a knob and the package costs about 10 to 12 euro, so that's quite reasonable. This is not a sponsored video, but I do sell the bucking, so I could be considered biased, so seek out other opinions as well. But for the price, you can also just give it a go and see what's up. The Friction Pro bucking is made in a nice smooth orange material. The hardness is 60 degrees shore and the rubber seems to have a similar elasticity to other NBR buckings, so it should be durable and easy to install. The material is NBR with some secret formula according to 4UAD. This means it is resistant to most oils, especially silicone oil and grease. NBR buckings are also the easiest to install in tight hop-up chambers to get that great air seal, because if you use silicone buckings, they tend to stretch. By the way, you're in for a new thing. This is the first time I'm doing a super heavy bucking review. I'd love to hear what you think of how I'm testing it. Let me know in the comments, and even better, join the Discord. Let me know what you think. First, I'll explain how buckings are tested and what's important to look for. There is different factors relevant for the fitment and resulting performance. The inside contact pads can be designed in different ways. It could be assumed that having a large grippy surface is the best, but this is not always the case. The size of the surface pads needs to match the BB weight. A too small pads will decrease energy efficiency with heavy BBs and cause jams. A too large pads will potentially cause accuracy issues with light BBs, as there's no resistance to hold the BB consistently during loading. On the outside, the dimensions of the bucking itself are important. If the material is too thin around the barrel, it will not seal well. If it's too thick, it'll be difficult to install it into the hop-up chamber without stretching it. Another critical area is the bucking lips themselves. If there's any resistance here, this can cause BBs to jam at the bucking lips. For AEGs, it's best that there is no or very little resistance here. Sometimes BBs can have a rougher surface, or dirt and polish can build up on the bucking surface, and this causes jams to happen over time, as now the lips are more constricted. Same thing goes for cold temperatures. A bucking that is just barely able to feed in the summer might actually experience jams once the temperature drops and the material becomes harder, so it can no longer flex around the BB when it passes through. This is especially an issue with NBR buckings, as they get really hard when the temperature drops. To show this, I'm going to start out with a cold temperature testing procedure. I put the Friction Pro bucking in the freezer along with various other buckings. This is an extreme cold test at around minus 15 degrees, I think, or minus 8, thereabouts. The bucking quickly heats up outside the freezer, so it has to be done rather quickly to see the actual difference. First, I'm testing the GBB buckings. We have a modified silicone bucking, a Lalix GBB bucking, and another modified silicone bucking. You can see that the silicone buckings spring back to original shape immediately. They have lost practically none of their elasticity, and the hardness is about the same. The Lalix GBB bucking takes almost 3 seconds to spring back, and it's easy for me to feel that the material is way harder now than before. Now testing the AEG variants. This is a bit more tricky to see. From left to right, we have a silicone bucking, a Prometheus purple AEG bucking, and a 4UD Friction Pro. Pay attention to the rear part of the bucking, which takes the longest to reshape. The silicone bucking springs back immediately, and it's no harder than before. The Prometheus purple bucking takes the longest time and again feels much harder than at normal room temperature. The 4UD bucking is also harder and also takes some time to reset, but it's still a bit faster than the Prometheus purple. Perhaps this is the special formula dimension, or perhaps my testing methodology is a bit imprecise. You be the judge of that. So overall, the NBR material of the 4UD is behaving as expected. It's not as good in cold weather as silicone buckings, but still works perhaps a little better than other NBR-based buckings. So I tested the Friction Pro AEG bucking in various chambers. From left to right, we have a VFC rotary chamber, a KWA M4 chamber, an ASG Scorpion Evo chamber, and what I think is a Cyma M4 chamber, a very old ICS M4 rotary chamber, a Crytek rotary chamber, and finally the Max Model M4 chamber. Also tested, but not shown, was a normal G&G rotary chamber. Earlier I mentioned why it's important to test the fitment in various ways. First, I checked that the bucking can slide in properly. It must not stretch here, and it must not be too loose either. Next up, I installed the C-clip. That's important to get the right force and depth on the bucking lips. Then I take a BB, and then I push the BB through the front lips to test how much resistance is on the lips. In this case, nothing, it just flies straight through. I went through this process with all the chambers I mentioned, and the results were excellent. The bucking was appropriately tight in most chambers and also had the free BB passage at the lips. The exception was the VFC chamber, which was too tight at the front to appropriately load BBs. In the popular Max chamber, the bucking was a great fit in all ways, and I've also confirmed this with actual test firing. The mold quality is quite decent. It's not 100% perfect, but actually in all the important contact areas, this bucking is incredibly clean and well molded. The inside edge and surface of the feet lips is smooth and even. The pads itself is very solidly designed with good support and no sharp edges. This is a design that is durable and resistant to flaying at the edges over time. It'll also fit easily with all the AEG barrel windows because it's so short. The included knob is a pretty straightforward concave design. Mold quality is nice, especially on the bottom where it contacts the bucking surface. It's designed to fit in AEG hub-ups and replaces the normal roll for better grip with heavier BBs. It's not strictly necessary. You can use your normal roll knob or other things with the Friction Pro bucking as well. I test fired this bucking in a G&G AEG. It's got an M110 spring, a 250mm ZC L barrel, and a stock G&G rotary chamber. The rest of the AEG also has various upgrades, and it sits at around 400 FPS with this M110 spring. Test firing was done by progressively adjusting the hub-up and noting the energy loss correlation for each click of the hub-up wheel. This gives a good indication of the lip air seal and pads resistance with heavier BB weights. The hub-up effect was simply eyeballed for each step. In the data, flat means that the BB, at 0.32 gram, was shooting flat with maybe half a meter jump upwards at the end. Above or below that is then noted as flat with a height difference. For example, flat plus 2 meters means that the BB was hitting 2 meters higher than the flat setting. First is a normal NBR bucking. I think it was a Garda 50 degree. That's very comparable to what you'd find in a stock AEG. Here we can see the air seal is so-so, sitting at 91 meters per second at its highest, and tapering off a fair amount in order to adjust for the 0.32 gram weight. That's normal, and a bucking like this is best for 0.20 to 0.28 at most. Next up is the Maple Leaf Diamond with the 4UAD concave knob. This bucking is more in the middle, it has a better air seal, and is able to lift 0.32s with slightly less energy loss. A bucking like this is reasonable for around 0.28 to 0.32, depending on the other AEG internals as well. Then we have a Prometheus purple bucking. This is a normal bucking with a slightly larger internal pads. It's usually good for 0.25 to 0.28 in normal AEGs. It has a very good air seal, but also tapers off severely when heavy hub-up is applied, as expected. This bucking has also commonly been used for R-hub or flat hub mods due to its great air seal, especially at the lips. Now last is the Friction Pro with the included 4UAD concave knob. Here we can see that the middle of the clicks give enough lift for 0.32 to 0.36 gram BBs, so adjustment wise it fits okay in a G&G chamber. The air seal starts out good, tapers off a little bit with 0.32, and then more with even heavier settings. But the bucking does not max out, so to say, and does lift those heavier BBs. I would say that the pads design is optimal for around 0.28 to 32, but it can also extend down to 0.25 and up to 0.36 depending on AEG setup such as spring strength and air seal. It is comparable to a Maple Leaf Diamond, but with better material, air seal, slightly better lift capability, and a pad design that won't flay at the edges over time. Now all these tests were in an AEG. With HPA, it's a totally different story. As HPA is more reactive in the hub-up, it can achieve more hub-up effect out of the same bucking. Testing with the Wolf engine and a Max chamber, I was able to accurately shoot from 0.28 to over 0.50 grams. So if you're using HPA, the 4UAD is a great choice, especially for the heavier BB weights. There can be some discussion about lip resistance as the Friction Pro is on the looser side. That's the right choice in my book, but some HPA setups do benefit from having more resistance on the lips to hold the BB during loading. So what's the verdict on the 4UAD Friction Pro? Well, I think it's good. It fits well in most chambers and will not jam BBs, and that's the most important point for actually recommending a bucking. The air seal is reasonable. The pads design is also reasonable. It's appropriate for people shooting 0.25 to 0.36 at 1 to 2 joule, so that's really the optimal middle ground. The material is NBR, which is not as optimal as silicone for low temperature gameplays, but the NBR material also gives it better oil and wear resistance. If you're running HPA, this bucking is especially interesting and you should just plain up try it. Don't wait, just go buy it 10 times and try it. There's no one size fits all when it comes to buckings, but overall, it's worth giving this bucking a go, as it's only around 10 to 12 euro, including the concave knob. So did you like my approach to how I reviewed this bucking? Let me know in the comments what you liked, what you didn't like, something else I should test, or even if you tried this and have some information about it. Same thing, if you're a Discord user, you're more than welcome to drop by and tell us your experiences.